All right, getting that out there.
We have the thousands flooding in to watch now.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see what we could do. All right, so thanks everyone who's joining us. Jared Kotler, Connecticut Scoreboard here, and today joining me got a couple special guests: Russ Steinberg, a dime back, and UConn great Rod Sellers. Rod and Russ, thanks so much for coming on today.
My pleasure.
Of
Thanks
course.
for having me.
I think we've got an interesting game to discuss today, and Rod, certainly some things I want to pick your brain on a little bit. Um, Rod, as the guest of honor tonight, we'll let you get started on some initial thoughts from today's game.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, it was a rough start to the game, but I think a lot of that has to do with the COVID pauses we've been having during the season. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is like the third pause, and I mean, they go 2 weeks without playing a game, and as much as you beat up on each other in practice, you need like the live game action to play. So I think that kind of had them out of rhythm a little bit early in the game. As you can tell, we couldn't like make a point, couldn't make a bucket, and a little bit of the defensive assignments were a little off. But as the game went on in the first half, at the end of the first half, we ended the first half pretty well. Started the second half really strong, and I think we did well there. It's just, I believe that rhythm, getting that game rhythm is key for us. So as I was, I'm on a group text with, the guys from my era, and we talk about the games all the time. And I just keep saying what we need to do is we have to somehow just stay able to play, stay negative, continue to test negative, and get that rhythm. And then with the rhythm, we're also getting back, a player of the year candidate who's been asked and who can get the ball and go get a bucket on his own. We're missing him, Book Knight, and we're missing Aiko, and he's a huge factor as well when he gets back and he gets healthy and he gets his rhythm back. So the fact that we were down I think 18 at one point,
Yep.
but we cut it to two a couple of times. The fact that they're hanging in there, they're playing like they play extremely hard. You have to be proud of them of how hard they play. They play extremely hard, and I think uh, Jackson coming back today. Jackson was a big lift, his athleticism,
Definitely.
his ability to make plays. And I think he's only going to get better the more he plays. He's only played what four? This is his fifth game, I think. So the more he plays, I think the more the better it will help the team. But I do believe the pauses hurt us a little bit today. But we ended up losing by seven. But they fought really hard. They played extremely well, for what they have, and I think they'll be okay. I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree with you a lot on the rhythm there. And Russ, you could hop in here after. I think you see probably those two things that are probably toughest to, I guess, simulate in practice, which are the start of games and then the end of games, because you saw at the end, wasn't 100% sure exactly what was going on there. A little lack of urgency, I'd say, those last couple minute there or so when they were trying to figure out what to do and come back in this game. So I get what you're saying there, Russ. Your thoughts?
Well, I agree with you. That's something that's probably hard to simulate in practice. But when you look at the last minute, 2 minutes of the game, I mean, those are certainly scenarios you work on where you know what you want to run. And UConn took way too much time off the clock. Those last 2, 3 possessions it didn't seem like they knew what they wanted to run. And that did surprise me a little bit, just because I know coaches have, a few canned plays down by 4 with 30 seconds left. This is how we approach this. You didn't really see much of that. So that concerned me a little bit.
Uh,
And as for the start of the game, I agree with a lot of what Rod said as well. You certainly saw they were out of rhythm from not having played and from really only practicing against each other for the last 10 or so days. The only thing that it does concern me, and I know it concerns a lot of people because I've been looking at Twitter, is why the starting lineup is what it is, and why someone like Jalen Gaffney wasn't put into the game a lot sooner when we've seen over the last few games exactly what he could do. And I think that's a point of a lot of frustration among UConn fans for the start of this game, not necessarily the missing the shots and being a little out of sorts defensively.
I agree with Russ there a lot. The end of the games, they all work on plays at the end of the games, and it looked like we didn't have a sense of urgency at the end. Taking a little too long off the clock to get into plays to get into the quick hit plays. Being down 4, being down 6 with a certain time on the clock, and Gaffney, I sent that to our group text us, and Gaffney is playing extremely well. And I think Lyman the Priest responded. He's looking a lot more comfortable. He's playing at his pace, and he's a lot more comfortable. And I think, certain times, me myself, I think coach is doing a great job, but sometimes I question certain lineups, and you have to, I know you want to play defense, you want to keep them from scoring too, but we also have to score as well. And sometimes we have like a lineup where who's going to get points, But that's what your question, like, who's going to get points here? And I think you have to mix it up a little bit better. I think Gaffney today, he showed that, he deserves a lot more minutes and, a lot more crucial time playing.
Rod, I want to ask you this. From your playing time, your coach in Jim Calhoun was very adamant, and he was known for calling a timeout, say 30, 45 seconds into the game. If you guys look slow and sluggish, in today's game, they're off to a slow start. They're sluggish. You could tell they're not in that rhythm. And you wait until you get to that first media timeout, which didn't come till, like I say, like 13 minutes or so, or 7 minutes into the game. It was like at like the 13-minute mark. From a player's perspective, do you sometimes need that timeout, say 2 minutes into the game, just to like wake up and be like, hey, we got to get our stuff together here?
I remember playing a game and the other team got the jump ball and they scored like 11 seconds into the game. And as we're taking the ball out of bounds, running down court, Coach Calhoun is at half court he's on the court calling timeout. And I mean, that's just how he was. I mean, and Coach, man, he berated us. I mean, it was brutal, but it worked. I mean, like, we snapped back like, whoa. And, I'm a believer in those timeouts as well. Sometimes you got to call them. You got to burn them. You got to, get into the players a little bit, light that fire somehow. And I don't believe in waiting for that media timeout. If you got those timeouts, especially in the first half, you have to use those. You have to utilize those timeouts, to get to the players.
Yeah, I do think in Dan Hurley's defense, maybe it was better in the first couple of minutes to try to let them play through it, knowing they were coming off of that layoff. But when that media timeout didn't come right around the 16-minute mark, and that's when the bleeding really started to get out of hand, I think that's when he needed to actually make that move. Maybe not necessarily in the first couple minutes of the game.
Right. Yeah, like you said, that layoff, they had to kind of play through a little bit of the rush there. But, when you're struggling a lot, I think you have to burn it a little bit as well.
I've got a 2-part question here for you, Rod. And it's, with this team playing without James Bouknight, what do these other guys gain from playing without him that'll kind of change things up once he's back and able to play? Say he comes back in the next week or so, as some are saying.
Oh, it's gonna, when he went down, I said him going down is gonna help a lot of guys because they're not gonna be so dependent on him for points and for buckets. Now, him helping guys also hurts us a little bit because we don't have that go-to guy who can get it and just go get the bucket or create for other people. But it's gonna give guys a little chance, get a little more comfortable, more confidence in themselves. And then when he comes back, now you have guys playing, say, you have a freshman playing who's thrown into the fire. Bouknight comes back. Now this guy's almost playing like he's a sophomore. Mm-hmm. Or you have guys who are like, maybe lacking a little bit of confidence here and there. Now he comes back. This guy has his confidence, and now Bouknight has his road dogs that can run with him, and I think that's nothing but help, if we can get him back soon and, make this run and get into this tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's going to be interesting to see once he comes back, what these guys can do together. Because I definitely think you've seen guys step up. You've seen a guy like Tyrese Martin, really carve out a nice role for himself,
mm-hmm.
And when you look at his numbers pre and post injury there, to see him really break out of his shell, I think is going to be big for this team going forward. Having a couple of those guys when other defenses are trying to double Bouknight or do what they might try to do to stop him, it's going to open things up for other guys who I think are definitely going to be a bit more comfortable out there.
Think about this. They don't have a guy out there now who can command a double team, so you're not getting open shots from swings, kicks, because you got a guy double team. So I think when Bouknight comes back, that's going to help Polly because, he needs those open looks. And if he can get those open looks, he's going to kill it. It's going to help Whaley a lot. I think Whaley, his game is energy. And with Bouknight drive and his man helping to drop down the dunks, you're not getting a lot of that now because even when guys drive, you don't see a lot of the other team helping. They're just kind of playing one-on-one to keep Whaley off the glass or things like that. But I think when he comes back, he's going to help so many people because of the attention that he draws from the defense. And, guys are going to get open shots, open looks, and they're going to be playing with more confidence. Brendan Adams, for example, he's a guy who the driving kicks, if he can get the open look, he can hit the shot. He's not getting a lot of open looks, and he's not great at creating it on his own. So when Bouknight comes back, I think it's going to help a lot.
Mm-hmm. Definitely there, and I know we're talking a lot of UConn here, but I do think it was a pretty impressive effort from Seton Hall today. It seemed like they were knocking everything down.
Everything.
And I think when you think about it, especially early on in that game, when they dig themselves into an 18-point hole, say you only play, bad instead of really bad there, it's definitely probably more of a game throughout this. And you kind of get what you got towards the, second half of that second half there, where you're in that like kind of 4 to 7 point range there.
Yeah, Mamu played great.
Everything in. Sorry, Rob.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm just saying it was frustrating. And Miles Cale had an outstanding game, and Mamu was able to do just about anything he wanted to do. Right. I don't think Whaley had a particularly great defensive game on him. You saw him go for a lot of up fakes that Mamu would give. You saw him and Sanogo and whoever else would come in to help commit a lot of fouls. He got to the line a ton. And of course, Seton Hall, it seems like, made every free throw that they attempted. So it was frustrating because there were maybe 5 or 6 times in that second half where you kind of cut it to 4 or 3 and you go, okay, just get a stop here. And this game changes completely. And they could not any time. And usually it was a shot clock running down, 25-foot 3 or ridiculous layup or bailout foul or something that you just wouldn't necessarily have expected. And it was just backbreaking every single time.
Rush, just spot on. I mean, every time, exactly what you said happened. We'll cut it to 4. You think, okay, here we go. Get a stop. But we couldn't count on the stop because, like you said, a backbreaking 3 or a layup or the foul. And Seton Hall had to shoot 88, 89, 90% from the line. I mean, they didn't miss it. So I'm like, Jesus, and so we foul and you're like, okay, it's back up to 6 because they're not going to miss. So, it was frustrating.
I'm curious to get your opinion on this. For the past few weeks without Bouknight, Coach Hurley's really been kind of adamant that they've got to play in the 60s to win a game. You see this score start to creep up a little bit. As a player, if you hear that all the time, do you get any sort of mental pause? It's like you start to feel like, hey, maybe this isn't our game here. We're letting them score at a rate that's going to be tough for us, and not check out per se, but kind of just I'm trying to think of the word here, but get that feeling where, hey, we kind of hit our wall here.
I don't think so because I truly believe these guys, they want to score. I think they want to play. I think, coach kind of wants to keep them down because, and in his mind, he thinks that it's a better chance, for us to win if the score is lower. But, I think a lot of players, they want to play. They want to score. They want to go up and down. I think we scored 40, 44 in the second half or something like that. It's like it showed you, man, sometimes we can score when we attempt to shoot. It's like some of the plays where we don't even attack the rim until 7, 8 seconds left on the shot clock. I'm like, my God, but that's his thing, and he's good with that. And the defense, generally plays really well, and they play really hard. So I don't question it. sometimes I personally wish, they would go a little bit faster.
Yeah, and I don't even think necessarily it's about playing in the 60s versus the 70s or whatever. It's making sure you're not in a situation with Book Night Out where you have to match the other team shot for shot. Mm-hmm. And I think in a lot of the second half, that is exactly where UConn was. And to their credit, I think someone like Jalen Gaffney showed that he could be a guy who at some point can do that, which was really great to see. But without someone like Book Night, an All-American candidate, that becomes really, really dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Going forward, what are you looking for this team come Wednesday night at Providence if they're going to be competitive? What are your keys to seeing them rebound from this loss?
For me, I just think they have to build on what they did in the second half today. They have to play, they have to start better. Like the first half was the best. So I think they start better. I think the defense. One thing they did, they made their free throw set. I think they shot like 84, 85%. I think, the defense will play better Providence. I just think they have to play hard, play with that grit, and I think just play with determination and confidence is key. And I think that Gaffney has to build on his game today. He has to continue to thrive and play as well as he's been playing.
I think that's big there when you mentioned Gaffney, because I know Russ and I have talked in the past about how we've seen him get incrementally better. And I think today you really saw him take that next step. Each of these past couple games, bit by bit, he's starting to show what he can do. And today I think he really did show what he can do when he's kind of got the keys out there.
Oh, I'm proud of him. I liked him even at the end of last year. And I said he's gonna find his niche and he's gonna be okay, And I think Cole coming in and they're kind of pushing Cole to start. I think it messed up his confidence a little bit, but I think he's working himself back to like, look, I deserve to be here and I deserve to play, and I think that's good for him.
Yeah, and Russ, I'll let you jump in here after too. But I think too what you've seen a little bit is I think Cole too is kind of getting a little pigeonholed into that starting point guard role and what's expected from that. Where when they play the two of them together and Cole's coming off the ball a little bit better, I think you're seeing Cole look a little more confident, knocking down some shots. That he seems to be in a more comfortable range.
Yeah, I agree with that. Cole, it seemed like the first 10 or so minutes of the game, you were wondering if he was even in there. He wasn't really doing a whole lot. But I agree. UConn has a few different weapons that they can go to in the backcourt, even without James Bouknight. And I think Cole is somebody that they can use as a scorer, not necessarily the catalyst when they need to. And Gaffney's one of those guys as well.
And one thing I'm going to be interested too, you saw that there were a few possessions there where Andre Jackson took the ball up the court and he showed what he could do with some of those passes. It wasn't sure that everyone was necessarily ready for him all the time because he throw in some nifty passes there. But it's going to be interesting to see the role he can develop now that he's healthy and out there playing.
Yeah, I did not expect his best game to come after missing like 6 weeks. Or so that definitely surprised me. I think he brings a ton of energy. I mean, that dunk was incredible. Hit that 1-3, which was beautiful, especially considering the lone attempt he had before the injury, which I think was at the backboard. He looked so much better, and he had a couple of big rebounds too. His defense, especially his help defense, not all that great. I think there were a couple of plays where he had his back turned to the guy who was driving, but stuff like that's going to come. Like he'll work on that. He'll get better. I think right now he is a great piece to have off the bench. Can inject some energy into the lineup. And you know what? UConn was better today, I think, when he was on the court.
I agree with Russ 100% on that. Just watching him today, playing with that energy and just, excited to see what he brings because, I mean, he's an electric dude. And to be able to hit the three as well. And, some of the passes he was making, I'm like, wow, that was a nice pass. That was a good pass. Oh, wow. And I think the guys are going to get used to playing with him as well. So I think that's a huge addition having him back. And then, like Russ said, playing his best game back after that 6-week layoff.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, Rob, this is Russ and I. This is our favorite part of the show. I'm sure you've been aware of the hot sauce fun that's been going on out there. And we partnered with Wanky's Yankee Hot Pepper Products. It's a Connecticut hot sauce company for our player of the game. So we'll go around and Russ, we'll let you start, and then we'll head to Rod.
All right, my Wanky's Yankees player of the game. I'm going with a UConn guy. Sorry, I don't care that they lost. And it's not just the scoring output. I mean, 20 points, 5 of 11 from the field, hit a couple of threes, 8 of 9 from the line. That's all great. I felt a lot more comfortable when the ball was in his hands in this game, I think, than when anybody else was running things. And like I said a few minutes ago, it seemed like when UConn needed a bucket, he was the guy who could get it. And that's not something I expected to see from him over these last few weeks when Book Knight has been out. So it's got to be Gaffney to me, and I really hope that he's starting against Providence.
I agree 100% with Russ. I'm giving it to Gaffney. He played tremendous today. And just like Russ said, you just felt comfortable when he had the ball in his hands, running the plays, bringing it up the court against their pressure or whatever. Just felt comfortable with him and the decision making. So I definitely give it to Gaffney.
We're all in agreement here because I'm going to go with Gaffney as well. And the reason for me is that one thing that I've really wanted to see out of him, because he's shown it in flashes, was some aggression. And today he just seemed, usually when he's in there, he always has that kind of like steady Eddie vibe to him. He kind of makes everyone feel comfortable out there. But I was just looking for him to take that next step. And when he was taking it, and he was just taking the ball to the basket, like you could tell he wanted to go out there and make his presence felt today, whether it was shooting some threes, driving, all around. I loved seeing the aggression in Gaffney come out today. So, despite the loss, I think definitely some positives we were all able to take away. And now we'll go out there and beat Providence. Rod, before we get you out, you have a good story about going up against Providence?
Providence, to me, was one of the toughest teams we played. And I just remember, I know you guys are a lot younger than me, but, Providence, when I was there, they had just like brute strength. I mean, those guys were just like strong. So it would be a battle. And Coach Dickham, an assistant coach, before every game we played, he would always write stuff on the board, and he would always say, 40 minutes, go give it 40 minutes hard. Every time against Providence, he would always say 40 minutes, maybe 45, because that game was always back and forth. It was always, maybe overtime game here, but it was true. It was just because they're so close, that regional battle, but my God, that was a rough game.
Yeah, and I think we're all expecting a tough 40 minutes come Wednesday night against Providence. Maybe we get to return a Book Night, maybe not. Either way, it's going to be a fun game. Get that rivalry back on the calendar and get those games underway. So, Rod, Russ, appreciate the time. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.